Welcome to the Wisepreneurs Podcast. I'm Nigel Rollins. This is the podcast for experienced independent professionals building a sustainable practice on what they already know. You want to work independently, but independence requires consistent revenue, visible expertise, and a practice that sustains rather than exhausts. Most people get stuck in that gap. They want out, but haven't built the practice yet. As John Younger says in one of our earlier episodes, you can't sell knowledge anymore, but you can sell wisdom. We explore how decades of professional judgment, smart use of technology, and the right partnerships create real competitive advantages for professionals working on their own terms. Let's begin. Ella Zhang is somebody I'd call a true wisepreneur. She spent decades building expertise across law, organisational development, and leadership coaching. She runs her own consultancy in Sydney. Her clients call her the Chinese doctor for sustainable growth because she diagnoses what's really going on rather than treating surface symptoms. In this conversation, Ella shares her framework of 4 inner operating systems and how micro-habits build real independence that comes from knowing who you are and what you stand for. This is the Wisepreneurs Podcast. I'm Nigel Rawlins. Ella, welcome to the Wisepreneurs Podcast. Could you tell us where you are and something about yourself?
Okay, first of all, really appreciate for having me on this podcast. I love the name already when you have a wisdom and wise in it. So I'm currently based in Sydney, Australia. And my background has been a little bit messy. I used to practice law before I came to Australia. But in the last 25 years living here, I navigate my career path into financial industry as learning development, organizational development. So I shifted from working on the dark side of the society into the potential of a human being in the corporate and also the society. So that's pretty much what I do every day on a daily basis. I love to see human being. It's more like mining ground that we need to navigate and discover and continue to review and grow until probably the last day of our life on this planet. So yes, that's pretty much me.
So you started off early in your career, I think, in law. Was that the case?
Yes.
What happened there?
Okay. Law practice was my dream since high school. And I remember the day probably in my 16s or 17s, I had a dream that when I grow up, I will have a legal firm for female, probably recruit all the female lawyers. We speak for the women who cannot speak for themselves. So that is one major dream I had. And the other dream is to have a school. And have a school not to teach the normal technical stuff, but to teach something. Back then, I came from China. In China, I think teach something that is not in the curriculum. For example, qualities. For example, virtues. But when I was 16, I don't have the language system to help me to articulate. But I just have this vague vision that these are the 2 things I want to do when I grow up. And when I finished the university and passed the bar examination and worked in the legal industry, just 6 or 12 months into it, I started to notice one thing, that I probably do not have the personality that is required to become the lawyer that I wanted. So it is truly take lots of courage and have to overcome lots of resistance to move myself out of the industry. So that's the reason I come to Australia. My first intention is come here to study Master of Finance because mathematics, I'm Chinese, but don't get me wrong, mathematics is not my forte. So I came here with the intention to study finance, then go back to China to practice law in the financial industry. But as you know, Sydney has put a special spell on me that make me stay for 25 years and never regretted that I restart to build my career here.
So with the legal career, you found you didn't like it?
I love law. I have a very strong justice kind of quality inside of me, which is inherited from my parents, I believe. But practicing law is very different. It does require different kind of, I would say, qualities. But back then, my limited 3 years experience in the industry make me feel it's more like a one person fight with the system. And my mom used to say, oh, you choose to become the lawyer because you think your working hours is flexible, but your flexible means you're working 24/7. And the other thing, I think I am still that kind of a person that I can never separate my work, my passion, and who I am. These are three things need to be aligned. So practice law back then is quite aligned. But this also means in the industry, there's a lot of conflict about value system. But back then, I don't have the language to describe that. I just have this feeling, okay, if I need to be successful in this vacation, I probably need to cut off arms and limbs to fit in. So to learn from whoever is successful in this industry. But in the early stage back then, there's always a voice inside of me questioning, is that the price you're willing to pay? So back then, I told my parents, I can see clearly in this industry, if I continue to operate the way I operate, that after 30 years or 40 years, how my life, how my career might look like. And which probably is not going to make me satisfied with myself because I want to achieve back then. But if I want to really go down the path as a certain examples in front of me to really be successful in the industry, then I know clearly I need to let it go part of me. But the question back then is, do I really want to pay that price? So my choice back then is, can I find a third way? So I need to remove myself from certain kind of a practice of the law and probably move myself into the corporate as an in-house counsel in the financial industry. So we're dealing with numbers rather than dealing with humans, even though human behind of those numbers. But when I practice as a lawyer, I do have very close interaction with human. And most of the time, I feel there's a tone between my heart and my mind. And in my 20s, that can be very, very consuming. But I guess at the end, it's more like, okay, do I truly have the personality that is required by this industry or this practice to be successful, or at least to be successful at the level that I can envision myself?
That's very interesting because you talk about torn between what's in your mind and what's in your heart. One of my other guests, Dante St. James, he became a doctor in Sydney and he couldn't stand it either. So he left, and people are going to have to listen to his story because similar situation to you, it wasn't what he thought it would be. So intellectually, and you spent a lot of energy becoming a lawyer, and then it wasn't what you thought it would be. The same thing with Dante. But now he's living up in Darwin and he's running a range of businesses, and he looks and he sounds very, very happy. You're known as the Chinese doctor for sustainable growth. So tell us about that.
Okay. I have a few encounters with my clients when I work with them, either as in-house consultant or external consultant. They always use the comments as, hello, you're the Chinese doctor. The difference between Chinese medicine and Western medicine is they treat the conditions rather than just treat the symptoms. Because when the condition is improved, a certain kind of symptoms will let it go, will walk away, will disappear immediately. But Western medicines sometimes probably purely focus on relieve the systems and relying on the operation when the system getting more serious. So we have to take the options to do whatever we need to do to stop it. But the one thing, besides practicing law, I think my experience of resigning from the bureau back then also planted significant seeds in my mind, seeking what could be the better way. Because back then I worked for the Bureau. Bureau never have anyone resign from them before me. And for me to submit a resignature, it feels like a slap on their face. And also my parents, this is a golden job. Why you do this? You're ruining your life. So back then, one thing made me contemplate in my early career is it possible for organization that we create conditions that all those individual employees, they feels like they have the right support for them to do right thing, and they can continue to exploit and grow and stretch. At the same time, the organization does not feel I need to manage you, I need to control you, I need to shape you, I need to cut you off, rather than just saying this is a beneficial practice from both ends. My resignation took 2 years to really get out. So at that time, naturally, I started to read lots of books, start to understand what is the personal value, what is the value for the business, what could be the organizational behavior. That's why I continue educating myself in the next 10 or 15 years, even when I was working full-timely in the organization on the behavior science, on the organizational behaviors. I'm still working on that. The beauty is back then when I was a law student or practice law, I don't even know the existence of this industry. But I'm really appreciate that currently I met so many people, so many role models, so many giants on this path that I can learn from them. But my main point is these days, I still working in big organizations, small organizations, in the team setting, in the organizational setting. What are the alignment between the individual, between the team, between the organization, so we can have the alignment to make sure when we work together, we don't consume ourselves unnecessarily or unproductively, because we all come here, do certain kind of work. So how can we make sure the process of producing the work actually is, I will use the words, with less waste. Don't waste the time, don't waste the energy, but how can we find that kind of alignment so we can work towards the same goal? And at the end, we can all feel very proud of the time and energy and effort we put forward.
Yeah, this is what I'm seeing out there now, is that we've come to the point where most of our work is knowledge. Unless you're working with your hands, well, even with your hands, there's still knowledge there. But organisations that are purely working on knowledge, they've got problems and issues coming in, and it depends how they are managed in many ways. So if they're managed in autocratic way and they're expected to be productive and sitting there all day working and solving problems, that's not how, creative people, well, when I talk about creative people, I'm not just talking about inventing new things and great artwork, is actually solving sometimes simple problems. That's creative.
Yes.
But that takes energy, doesn't it?
I do agree, because I think for a job to exist, no matter what level of the job or a role exists in the organization, it is required to solve certain kind of problems. Right? Mm-hmm. So I personally feel problem solving, not just as a skill, as a normal training that is necessary and useful, but it's also come down to the intention. Are we going to solve the problems that we can make sure we prevent the problem to happen again? Because I remember back then in my legal education, what are we talking about for us to practice law? It's not to succeed in the courtroom. If we can help our client, prevent them to even go to the courtroom, and that's the success of us, because we educate them. We put the right merit into the right place. So you guys don't have to spend the time and the money and the energy, go to the courtroom. So that's a successful lawyer, rather than just fight with each other in the courtroom to feel, oh, look how wonderful I am. So I guess that kind of a mindset stayed with me in my practice when I was in the corporate as a learning development. Always figure out what could be the systematic issues we need to solve here, and what could be the best solution for that, because we're not going to enjoy solving the problems repetitively just to keep our position secure. No, we would love to be challenged to solve different problems. So when I do coaching, sometimes I even give the task to my coachee. I said, now you see we can solve this problem. So next month, before you come to the next session, I'll create some new problem for you to solve. Because that is how we testing the system, how we testing the interaction, but do not bring back the same problem or bang our head on the same spot on the wall. Let's find another spot on the wall to bang on. Different, yeah.
Well, yeah, that makes me think that some people, they just get into a job and they just don't really bring themselves to it or to start reflecting on, gee, I've done this 20 times before. How come I keep doing that? What causes that to happen where I guess it's a bit of burnout or what's causing them not to be able to face what they're doing and deal with it?
Okay. I think the reason could be on different levels. I do see different people come to the workplace to do a certain job with a different purpose. Some people come to do certain work because they want to feel a sense of proud of themselves. They want to achieve something. They want to leave some legacies. So they want to create evidence to show that I'm capable enough to do this kind of job. But I also feel it's quite natural and quite normal and quite acceptable for some people come to the workplace just to do the normal based on instruction, order. I just want to spend a minimum of time and energy and effort to get job done. And the organization, all the organization, we still need a percentage of the people to do that, to have the grounds covered. So no problem at all, because imagine that you have a busy family life, you have many people in your family that you need to care about. Then how much energy, how much you can put into your 8 hours, even 4 hours as a part-time. So totally get it. Sometimes I see that as a learned behavior. Because, for example, many organizations, sometimes I provide a consultancy to, if they are so massive, so big, it is very hard for a decision to be made. There's a lot of conversation, lots of discussion, but there's a lot of constraints as well. So sometimes I also appreciate employees working or managers working in that kind of environment, that they come to this kind of organization with the passion that my expertise can help to solve certain kind of problems you guys are facing. But when they start to do the work, they start to notice, oh, there's so many blocks on their way. And some of the blocks probably cannot be solved at their level. And so they articulate, they escalate, that take a longer time. So very quickly, like 6 months, 1 year gone, but the problems is still the problem. And also then the senior levels, they constantly have changes in terms of who is doing what. So there's lots of issues probably raised, and there's some suggestions probably already provided, but it's easily get lost in the process. So I guess for some employees, if they do have the responsibility, or if they have limited choice of the opportunities of the job because they have a family, to help themselves to go through the day to get the job done, they have to nagging themselves, okay, what can I control? What can I focus on? Do I need to control and focus on the things that I have no or limited influence? So how can I focus on today just to make sure that I don't get a burnout? I don't feel so disappointed that I wanted to work out. Because lots of the people probably don't have the luxury to make the choice like that. So I do see different reasons, different contributors, and a different background, different contexts to make that happen. But for me to do my work is more like, let's understand, where does this come from? And are you happy with the outcome of that? If you personally have a very high level of unsatisfactory about the outcome in terms of the work itself, in terms of how you see yourself in this process, then let's reverse engineer back to see which part that you made a choice in the past, now condition or the environment may have some changes, then what different choice we can make over there.
So do you do this at an organisational level or on a personal level?
Organizational level, usually I do lots of consulting. With big organization, it's all about capability development. With a smaller size, I do work with lots of SMEs. So they have a team, quite a profitable business at a certain stage that they feel, okay, internal capability need to be uplifted. Because we either want to scale up the business as fast as possible, or the owner would love to develop his successors so they can get retired. So those are the moments they engage people like me to get in to understand what could be the capability required internally. This capability also involves what could be the management cadence, what could be the habits we put in place. The habits probably is on the individual level, but also on the team level. So I'm also about the real growth of the capability. We have so many theories, so many teachings. So in any kind of situations, we have to make effort to remind ourselves. I tend to think the way we help individual employee or managers to grow the capabilities is we help them to build lots of micro habits. When these habits are very strong, then the situation calls, it's come out naturally. It comes naturally, does not consume any kind of energy for you to contemplate. When it's contemplate, which means, okay, certain part of us still need to be solid. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned the word micro habits. So is this something that you teach your clients?
Yes.
And why is that a good idea?
Oh, okay. I have been doing learning development for many years. Usually we do lots of leadership trainings and management trainings, and the business also invest a lot of money to do the workshops and the trainings and the coaching and the mentoring. And what I noticed for certain people, they can really take the content from the training sessions and then apply them in their life. This is not the events that happen as a one-off. Events happen repeatedly in the next XY months, sometimes years. So because they need to make effort at the beginning to embed some new learnings into their current routine, the routine of practice, the routine of the way of thinking, the way of doing, until they shift that, this new learning could be part of them. And they can also be more creative in different situations. How I'm going to do this, because I already understand this theory, this principle, so I can be more creative in terms of the approach I'm going to take in this situation. So in the past, I see people just purely copy-paste whatever the trainer, the teacher taught in the classroom into their reality without their personal touch. When there's no personal touch, it is not yours. So back then, when I was in corporate, I always sharing this thought in the induction with the new employee. I said, whatever you learn here, take your time to practice it. Because the more you practice it, knowledge going to be the living organ inside of you. So that becomes your asset. So wherever you go with it. You don't need to go back to the textbook or the slides to copy paste something come out from others. You will be extremely creative, and you can create a unique approach, unique way of articulation, because it's come from inside of you. Because this is something no one can steal. So don't feel afraid to share either, because this is come out from inside of you. It's never copy-paste from somewhere. But we all start from copy-paste from somewhere till we create this living organ inside of us.
Yeah. What you're talking about is the micro habits that you need to practice to bring them in. And I guess that's like a lot of learning. There's a chap called Luc P. Boudin, the Canadian guy, who calls that productive practice. It's not like, learning to do that tennis playing or anything like that where you've got a coach. This is where you take something and you actually spend some time learning to do it. And this is one of the big things about knowledge work, is that we've got so much information out there and so many new tools. And I suddenly realised this whole thing about the learning organisation or continuous learning is that there's new tools all the time, and you've got to be careful. You've got to to learn them properly, for example, AI, and we'll talk about how that's affecting your potential clients or clients, is that we have to learn to use this stuff and bring it in. And, you can't just ignore it or in your work. And so, yes, so I think that you hit the micro habits on the nail. That's exactly what that is, but getting them to do it.
Yeah, because of micro habits, I just released some resource to my clients and some previous clients I work with. Just very simple. One of the habits that we identified for team when they have lots of team frictions and also have very poor quality conversations. Asian, like a Buddhist teaching, we have this teaching saying assuming positive intent. So I'm just simply create 3 questions that you guys can use in different scenarios, different situations. How can I hold myself accountable to assume positive intent? Because in my view, lots of conflict in the workplace is not caused by bad intention, but because we don't pause long enough to ask a right question. We just jump into the conclusions. So we start to fight with each other. So what could be the 3 prompts or questions you guys to use in different situations to give you the breathing space to ask proper questions or right questions to challenge your own assumptions? So those are the micro habits that I mentioned, because it's probably only take you, if you practice enough, it's probably just take you 2 steps. Pause myself. Think about these questions, then go. So that's easy.
Oh, I totally agree with that, because I had an argument with my neighbour the other day and I got defensive and attacked back, and I thought, with hindsight, why didn't I just listen and think about it before I responded? Because then we would have had, because she avoids me now. So, but that must happen at work all the time. You get this in your head that person doesn't like you, and that's not going to be conducive, is it? So when you go into an organisation, they call you in and they want to talk to you, can you sense what's wrong straight away?
Okay, I usually offer a free consultation, free conversation before we really talking about what we need to talking about. So usually at that time, the manager, the people will bring me the problems they're facing. And honestly, most of the time, they're thinking the problems is sitting in their team, in the employees, particularly small, medium size. They always want to say, hey, I have a team member, such, I need you to help. I need your help to fix them. So rather than respond as a yes or no, I always ask, tell me more. Tell me more what he did, what she does, what is the situation, or does this happen quite often? What could be the background? What could be the context? How did you interact? So that kind of a conversation will help me and also help them to review what could be the root cause of this kind of difficult employee or difficult behaviors. So yes, that's how I diagnose briefly on the spot with them. If they're very happy with that conversation with me, most of the leaders, they are, for example, SME leaders or funders, they are very practical people. They're not going to spend time and energy superficial stuff because the revenue is all relying on their work. So if they see the value of that conversation, they're usually going to invite me, and depends on the size of the business and the issues that we identified. I usually request to have more conversation with the people because I want to get a different side of the stories, different perspectives. And that also helped me to understand what is the way that each individual managers or team leaders or employees, they processing information here. So that will give me the snapshot about whatever we need to propose to do is a certain kind of change. They change the way of thinking, way of doing, way of collaborating, way of maybe verbalizing the situations. So I need to understand all those people's style and the tendency. Then we can design what could be the best way, make it less threatening for those people would love to open to see or to talk or to discuss something they haven't discussed in the past.
Well, that's reflection back onto your micro habit of just not assuming, because, you said the magic word that they often want you to fix a problem. They point away from themselves to start with. I mean, when I used to work with my former mentor for many, many years, he would never believe anything they'd say. He would have a number of conversations to pull it out. And they often don't recognise what they're telling you. But if you know your business, and you do from what I'm hearing, you're hearing where the problems are and you can ask the right questions. And I think that's wisdom from me anyway. So I can see where the Chinese doctor for sustainable growth comes from, because you're not just, well, you're seeing and hearing. Well, my mentor, Dennis Hitchens, would say he often could know without seeing.
I also do shadowing because regardless of what you guys told me, I also do shadowing. I need to observe. I need to collect data for myself. So that's also one of the approach that a Chinese doctor does. They need to look at you. They probably see different colors on your face, then they know what could be the symptoms. So I guess Chinese doctor, the only difference comparing to Western is with the people, I think in the system. I love to think in the system. I'm not motivated to solve the problem on the surface level, but I'm willing to attract more business who want to solve the problem in one go, so we don't need to repeat in a 2 or 3 years' time later on. So we need to take time to understand what is the real problem that we need to solve here. So usually people I take on board to be my clients, we're probably going to spend a little bit longer time to identify what is the real problem. And when we can really pinpoint the real problem, solution is usually quite easy. But I feel lots of the business, sometimes they don't have the patience. So if they engage the consultant, they know the problem, they think they know the problem, they just bring the problem to you and expecting you resolve that as fast, as quick as possible without a proper diagnosis. So I think this is really the personal preference. I used to have lots of discussion with the business in that way, but then I realized maybe that's also the life lessons people need to learn in their own time. Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of things there. Time is an issue. They want a quick fix, but quick fixes never work. We know that. And they know it from even at home trying to do a quick fix. If they don't do it properly, it breaks again. So it sounds very much like what you offer to start with is that diagnostic. Have you ever had to walk away saying, this person's not taking any responsibility. He just wants me to come in, or she, and fix that problem, but it's going to continue because that person doesn't want to get involved with the long-term change. Just a quick pause. I've put together 2 free assessments for experienced professionals. One helps you map the professional judgment you've built over your career, and the other helps you audit your reputation and readiness for independent work. Both are found at wisepreneurs.com.au/free-assessments. Now back to the conversation.
Majority of my clients, when I finish the first diagnose with them, I will offer them 2 or 3 quick fix, because there are quick fix available on the superficial level, on the individual level. If they change their way of conducting the feedback or performance management, that will change the reaction immediately, besides a much more deeper issues that we need to solve. I've been running my consultancy for 10 years. I only sacked one client. This one client is not about they don't do what we want them to do, or I think it's the right thing to do. It's more like we did some work together, then I realized our value system does not align. Our values clashed. So I just pay back the money they paid and just say, it's not the right person to help you to achieve this goal, because I didn't even explain why, because I guess in that kind of a situation, it's unnecessary to tell right or wrong, but it's just a personal choice.
And you felt that inside?
Yeah, because back then I feel, wow, this is the first time I need to do that, but I have to do it because I know if I continue the project with them, I'm not going to be fulfilled. And this tension doesn't come from personality style. No, it comes from the values. If I can see clearly our value clash with each other, it's better we part the way. Yeah.
All right, let's have a look at some of the things that you talk about. The inner edge or the inner operating systems. Can you tell us what you mean by that?
Okay, this is the idea I put in my book, which was published probably 2 or 3 years ago, just right before ChatGPT was available. I wondered back there, sort of, wow, if I have an AI to write, how easy it going to be? Because English is my second language. I think a human being, you and I, everyone, simultaneously, internally, there's a certain system is constantly operating without awareness. Without our awareness, if we do not make effort to understand them, they probably just charge our life and deliver the result we unnecessarily happy about. So in my view, there are 4 inner operating system. Mental, the way we think, the way we analyze, the way we interpret, the way we appraise the situation. And the second is emotion. I think a lot of people now these days agree human being we're emotional animal. So emotion motivate us to make choices, make decisions. So emotion and the way of thinking, these two are very close, connected to each other. And the third, in my view, is very important. In my book, I use the word spiritual. Spiritual, actually, in the workplace, what I use is more like the value system. Your value system. We do need to have the value system to filter out why and how we do or do not do certain things in certain ways, because that our values in actions. So if we can have the clarities about the values and put through our actions through that test, actually we can have a lot of more joy, have more confidence in ourselves because we are internally aligned. And the fourth system I put down is the physical system, because you probably already know people like me, we are high achievers in the younger days. So in my younger days, I was the person that I think walking in the office is a waste of time. So I run in the office. So the result of that, I had an episode of burnout in 2007. I had a burnout back then. Are You Okay Day is not as popular as it is now. So we don't talk about it, but I start to search, how can I get healed from that? Because I still love doing the work I do, but I realized I just need to find another way to respect my body, because in your younger days, you think as long as you don't go to the doctor, you're healthy, but actually it's not. So that's the time I start to explore neuroscience, to understand physical intelligence, practice meditation. So these days, Vipassana, I'm in Sydney, so I go to Blue Mountain Vipassana Center every year, 10 days. I used to think that it's a torture, but after 3 years, I think that's the best gift I can give to myself, which is the 10 days spent with my mind and with myself. So all those four things, in my view, they work simultaneously, individually, but also collectively. And this is how we operate internally. And if I look from the outside, for the people I work with, leaders and the managers, I guess there are 2 biggest challenges for them, which is outside the world truly change so damn fast. And this change probably by nature that a human, we don't like it. And also the senior you get, the complexity of the situation you're facing is getting even more complex. So there's no certainty and there's no clear yes or no answer. Nothing is going to be black and white. So in that kind of a situation, how do I filter out my choice and the decisions? So the value system becomes even more important. And also because, and this is the one thing I reflected the other day, lots of organizations now require a lot of people to work more flexibly, but incident doesn't happen flexibly. So I see lots of teams, sometimes I'm amazed. If you guys receive the sick leave request on the morning every day, then who's going to be there to solve the problem that are brought to the business by external clients or by your employees? So if you only have to rely on 1 or 2 person, continue to perform at the highest level, to have everything done, even other people have reasonable reasons not to be there. And how can we make sure we can help them to sustain the high performance without burnout. So that's the physical part also come into play. So the more I look at how we work these days, I just hope if we can have more clarity about how we work internally underneath the surface. So if we can really create a daily routine and a daily ritual and a daily habits or weekly habits and a ritual to make sure we give enough of oil to these 4 internal operating systems, then we can expect ourselves to have the capacity to dealing with the pressures. Because I always feel by doing so many trainings to the leaders, sometimes their behavior collapse. It's not because they lack of knowledge, but it's because in those demanding situations and moments, they lack the inner capacity to have the access of that knowledge. And that's also why in my current work, one of the offerings is let's do lots of micro habits practice. Because when you have lots of habits embedded in your daily routines, we build a certain solidarities in that areas. So when this challenging situation happens, we probably have enough of internal resource allow us to make right choice rather than react to the situation, then feel regret, then have to invest more time and energy to repair.
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, look, P. Badone, he makes the point that we know stuff, but we don't always do it. We don't always practice.
Yes.
And
access.
And that's where your micro habits come in. But obviously, to get those micro habits working, how long do you have to work with these people?
Depends. Some people are really good because I have a model of inner edge capability. We interpret that to the 4 levels of capabilities for each domain. And those 4 levels also matching to the positions in the organization, like a junior level, team leader, head of function, and the senior leaders. So each of them, each level have a different habits. Usually I just give like a foundational level, junior level, we probably need to have more habits to practice because we're shaping our view, our way of thinking and doing. The senior you get, probably the number of the habits will reduce a lot. But it really depends. For example, last year I did a pilot of consulting work with the organization about quality conversations. We only used 3 months, and I only give that they can choose the habits as a team, as an individual. They practice individually and collectively because we have this dashboard. They can view each other, what kind of habits you choose to practice. So we can keep each other accountable for that, right? And also as a team, what could be the habits we build together? So when we work together, we could use these habits to help us to deal with different conflicts, the disagreement, whatever it is. So I only give them 3 months of time. And for each habit, maximum, probably, let's say, sometime probably just 2 weeks, sometime probably 1 month maximum. And for each of them, I borrow this practice from a guru. I forgot his name. At the beginning, could be challenged, but all the questions internally we need to ask ourselves is, have I done my best? Have I tried my best to do this today? So we give the rating of the efforts that we put forward to build these habits. And we can remove these habits when we notice, actually, I don't need much effort to do this. For example, in real life, for example, I'm training to run half marathon this year. At the very beginning of the year, I do need have a calendar, say, oh gosh, did I get up at 6 o'clock and to run 5K, 6K today? Or I need to make effort for whatever reason. But these days, I already achieved the target. If I wake up in the morning, I don't feel sore or pain anywhere. I feel the urge that I need to go out, have a run. So this is the process. Yeah.
All right. So Ella, that's your work when you go out, but you work for yourself, don't you? So you're what I call an independent professional. So mention that you go off to a meditation retreat for 10 days. Yeah. How do you keep yourself at your best self so you don't burn out?
Okay, I have been very stingy. So every single client I take on, every single project I do, I easily get into the flow moment of doing that because I take a long time in the past 20 years to choose the career path. And then now every single day, I feel privileged to work on the things that I'm working on, and I can work on this path. So my joy comes from, no matter in other people's eyes how tedious the work I do, but for me, that's lots of joy. For example, creating the content or writing the post, even writing a blog. In that process, you do research, you tweak your words. I have lots of enjoyment in that kind of a process. So I do suggest whatever kind of vacation people choose to do, take some time, minimum probably 5 to 10 years time in the early stage of your career. Try to do a variety of things, then identify what kind of tiny task give you the joy. Which means when you're doing that, you have lots of pleasure, and the effort you put in give you the result that probably is easier for you to achieve than others. So that also the indicator that could be your talent. And in terms of how to make myself not going to get a burnout again, I guess there's a couple of things. First of all, this is also comes from experiment. We do need to understand how our energy flows, because our energy level doesn't come in as a flat line every day or every week. So it does take some experiment and try and error to understand during the week, during the day, what is the peak and the valley of your energy. I put this in my book as well. So you understand how your energy flows. Then the next thing to do is to matching the task with your energy levels. Because what I notice, I'm the morning person, I wake up at 5 or 6 naturally. So I'm very stingy about my morning time, because during those first 3 to 4 hours, if I can do some deep thinking and the writing and the creation kind of work, super productive. I probably just took 2 or 3 hours a day. Even when sometimes when I finish, I feel, oh my gosh, it's just 9 o'clock. But I can have a joy or pleasure kind of a feeling that I had a big bite of the biggest challenging, difficult task of the day. Then I can go out to meeting people and I have sessions. So currently all my clients knows, coaching clients knows, they won't be able to see me before 11 because I block those time to do lots of deep thinking type of work. And then after 11 or in the afternoon, that's my time to meeting people, to have coaching sessions, because that's time I'm more open awareness kind of focused. But in the morning, I need to dive very deep. And the other thing I make sure is I used to really just whatever the work request, no matter what time of the day of the week, I will respond immediately. But these days I learned to have separate account, only check this during the working hours. Sometimes I probably still do some work on the weekend, but I will make sure my weekend activity does not involve computer and the screen, because I spend more like 8-10 hours a day on that is enough. So my weekend now is more like a bushwalking, hiking and running and catching up with friends. Just don't talk about work. And I even made this rule with some of my clients / friends, because we become friends or becomes clients because we are friends. I don't know which way around. We make a pact. So if we catch up on the weekend, of course, they can use me and we can use them to process some work-related issues. No problem at all. But let's focus on what could be the outcome of this short conversation. If it's needed and urgent, we do that. Otherwise, we also have other parts of the life that can update each other. So yeah, make that rule. And also the other thing I think very necessary, if I'm speaking, if your audience are the people working in organizations, they have a job. One thing I learned back then is one of the major reasons that we can easily get a burnout is because we're driven people. We want to solve problems as fast, as quick as possible. So we don't give ourselves time to take a break. And this take a break can be as easy, as simple as not talk to your colleagues about work during the lunch hour. Even just that 30 minutes, don't talk about work at all, could give us some breathing moment or breathing windows to help us renew our system.
I totally agree with that. So do you work with corporate and small to medium enterprises? Do you also take on individual clients?
Yes, I do. Last year, I even do some public programs about leadership and management. And because the topic is designed in sequence and a topic that I have already run many times in the corporate, but because I collaborate with some career development groups or multicultural groups here, so I was asked to run them publicly. And some of the students go through different programs with me, learning how to manage up their managers, then also learning how can I be the best manager for my people. So yeah, we're doing that. And some of them, they want to have more individual one-on-one support. So we engage as the coaching. And I also do individual coaching mostly because the managers or the leaders in the organization, they want external support for their managers. So I also get some organization, even small business, assign me to be the coach for their management team individually or collectively because they need some uplift of the capabilities.
Yeah. I'm definitely coming to the conclusion that if you want to work at a high level, you do need to connect with somebody who works with you as a coach, as a sounding board, to give advice, to listen. And more, and I don't think it matters what age you are.
Yeah.
It's becoming more and more important. Ella, is there something else you'd like to say? Because we're really at the end here now.
I truly hope whoever is listening to your podcast, they have this belief. Life experience here is not to torture us. Life experience here is to give us the learning ground to understand how can we, what kind of skills, what kind of tools, what kind of support, what kind of environment, what kind of conditions we can create for ourselves to be better so we can manage those challenging situations in a much better way. Eventually, if they are as old as I am, no matter how they know, if they are as old as I am, they will understand the inner peace actually is created by constantly sharpen and uplift our inner capability so we can maintain the inner peace no matter how messy the outside world is.
Yep, I agree with that. So Ella, where can they find you?
I'm on LinkedIn. If you search Ella Zhang or Ella Z, you will find me. And I also have a website, ellazhang.com.au.
And I'll have all that in the show notes. So Ella, thank you very much for being my guest.
Thank you so very much for having me. I feel like we only just started a conversation, but it's already 1 hour.
Thanks for listening. If today's conversation resonated, 2 things are worth checking out. The free assessments at wisepreneurs.com.au/free-assessments. They'll help you get clear on what your experience is actually worth and where to focus on next. And sign up for the Wisepreneurs newsletter. Practical ideas for building a practice on your own terms every Tuesday. Sign up at wisepreneurs.com.au/newsletter. I'm Nigel Rawlins. See you next time.